attribute it to the superior quality of the wine, sir. I've often observed that in married households, the champagne is rarely of a first-rate brand.
Good heavens! Is marriage so demoralizing as that?
I believe it is a very pleasant state, sir, although I have had very little experience in it myself up to the present. I've only been married once, and that was in consequence of a misunderstanding between myself and a young person.
I don't know that I am much interested in your family life, Lane.
No, sir, it's not a very interesting subject. I don't think of it myself.
Very natural, I'm sure. That will do then. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Lane's views on marriage seem somewhat lax. Really, if the lower orders don't set to serve as a good example, what on earth is the use of them? They seem so fast to have absolutely no sense of moral responsibility.
Mr. Earnest Worthy.
How are you, my dear Earnest? What brings you up to town?
Oh, pleasure, pleasure. What else should bring one anywhere? Eating as usual, I see, Algie.
I believe it is customary, in good society, to take some form of refreshment at 5 o'clock. Where have you been since last Thursday?
Oh, in the country.
And what on earth do you do there?
When one is in town, one amuses oneself. When one is in the country, one amuses other people.
And who are the people that you amuse?
Oh, neighbors.
Got nice neighbors in your part of Shropshire?
Perfectly horrid. Never speak to one of them.
Oh, nicely you must amuse them. By the way, Shropshire is your county, is it not?
Shropshire. Yes, of course. Oh, why did you come to sandwiches? Why such reckless extravagance of one so young? Who's coming to tea?
Oh, merely Aunt Augusta. And Gwendolyn.
How perfectly delightful.
That is all very well. But I don't think that Aunt Augusta will quite approve of your being here.
May I ask why?
My fellow, the way that you flirt with Gwendolyn is perfectly disgraceful. It is almost as bad as the way Gwendolyn flirts with you.
I am in love with Gwendolyn. I have come into town to expressly propose to her.
To propose? I thought you had come up for pleasure. I call that business.
How utterly unromantic you are.
Oh, there is nothing romantic in proposing. It's very romantic to be in love. But there is nothing romantic about a definite proposal. One may be accepted. One usually is, I believe. And then the excitement is all over. The very essence of romance is uncertainty. If I ever get married, I will certainly try to forget the fact.
I have no doubt about that. The divorce court was made for people whose memories are so curiously constituted.
Oh, there is no use speculating about that. Divorces are made in heaven. Oh, please, don't touch the copper sandwiches. They were ordered specially for Aunt Augusta.
But you have been eating them all the time.
That is an entirely different matter. She is my aunt. Have some bread and butter. The bread and butter is for Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn is devoted to bread and butter.
And very good bread and butter is too.
Oh, my dear fellow, you need not eat as if you are going to eat at all. You act as if you are married to her already. I don't think you ever will be.
Why on earth do you say that?
Well, in the first place, girls never marry the men they flirt with. They don't get it right.
Oh, that's nonsense.
It isn't. It is the great truth. It accounts for the extraordinary number of bachelors one sees all over the place. And, in the second place, I don't give my consent.
Your consent?
My dear fellow, Gwendolyn is my first cousin. And before I allow you to marry her, you will have to clear up the whole question of Cecily.
Cecily? What on earth do you mean? What do you mean, Algie, by Cecily? I don't know anyone with the name of that name. As far as I can remember.
Then, bring me the cigarette case that Mr. Worthing left in the smoking room last time he dined here.
Yes, sir.
You mean to say that you've had my cigarette case all this time? Oh, thank goodness you would have let me know. I've been writing frantic letters to Scotland Yard about it. I was very nearly offering a large reward.
Well, I wish you would offer one. I happen to be more than usually hard up at the moment.
Well, there is no good offering a large reward now that the thing is found.
I think that is rather mean of you, Earnest, I must say. However, now that I look at the inscription inside, I see that the thing isn't yours after all.
Of course it's mine. You've seen me with that 100 times, and you've no right to read what's written inside a private cigarette case. It's a very gentlemanly thing to do.
Yes. It is absurd to have a hard and fast rule about what one should read and of what one shouldn't. One should read everything. Nearly half of modern culture depends on what one shouldn't read.
Oh, I'm quite aware of the fact. But I do not propose to talk about modern culture with you. It isn't quite the sort of thing one talks about in print. I simply want my cigarette case back.
Yes, but this isn't your cigarette case. This cigarette case is someone who was given to you as a gift from someone with the name of Cecily. And you said you didn't know anyone of that name.
Well, if you must know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt?
Yes, charming old lady she is too. Lives at Tunbridge Wells. Just give it back to me, Algie.
Yes. But why does your aunt call herself Little? From little Cecily with her fondest love.
My dear Algie, what is there in that? Some aunts are tall, some aunts are not tall. That is a matter surely an aunt may be allowed to decide for herself. You seem to think that every aunt should be exactly like your aunt. That is absurd. I simply want my cigarette case back, Algie.
Yes, but why does your aunt call you her uncle? With fondest love from little Cecily to her dear Uncle Jack. Besides, your name isn't Jack at all. It's Ernest.
It isn't Earnest. It's Jack.
But you have always told me that it was Ernest. I've introduced you to everyone as Ernest. You look as if your name was Ernest. In fact, you're the most earnest-looking person I ever saw in my life. It's perfectly absurd saying your name isn't Ernest. It's on your cards. Here's one of them. Mr. Ernest Worthing, B4 the Albany West. I'll keep this as proof if you ever attempt to deny that your name is Ernest, to me, or to Gwendolyn, or to anyone else.
Well, my name is Ernest in town, and Jack in the country. And the cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Ah. But that does not account for the fact that your small Aunt Cecily, who lives in Tunbridge Wells, calls you her uncle. Come, old boy, much better have the thing out at once. I may mention that I have always thought of you as being a confirmed but secret Bunburyist, and I am quite sure of it now.
Bunburyist? What on earth is a Bunburyist?
I'll reveal to you the meaning of that incomparable expression as soon as you reveal to me why you are called Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Well, produce my cigarette case first.
Here it is. Now produce your explanation, and pray make it probable.
My dear Algie, there is nothing improbable about my explanation at all. In fact, it's perfectly ordinary. Old Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me when I was a little boy under rather peculiar circumstances, and left me all the money I possess, made me in his will guardian to his grandmother, Miss Cecily Cardew, who addresses me as her uncle from motives of respect that you could not possibly understand. She lives at my place in the country, under the supervision of her admirable governess, Miss Prison.
And where is this place in the country, my friend?
That is nothing to you, dear boy. I will tell you quite candidly that the place is not in Shropshire.
I suspected as much. I have Bunbury all over Shropshire on 2 separate occasions. Now, go on. Why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear Algie, I don't think you possibly understand my true motives. You are hardly serious enough. When one takes the role of guardian, he or she has to adopt a high moral tone on all subjects. And indeed, this cannot result in much help or happiness to excess. I have always pretended to have a brother of the name of Ernest, who lives at the Albany and gets the most dreadful scrapes. This way, I can visit the town as often as I like. That is the whole truth, pure and simple.
The truth is very pure and never simple. Modern life would be very tedious if it were either, and modern literature a complete impossibility.
That wouldn't be at all a bad thing.
Literary criticism, my dear fellow, is not your forte. Don't try it. You much better leave that to people who haven't been at a university. You do it so well in the daily papers. But you really are a Bunburyist. That's quite right saying you're a Bunburyist. In fact, you're the most advanced Bunburyist I ever saw in my life.
What on earth do you mean by that?
My dear fellow, you have invented a useful young umbrella in order that you may be able to go down to town as often as you choose. I have invented a dreadful permanent invalid named Bunbury in order that I may be able to go down to the country as often as I like. Bunbury is perfectly invaluable. If it weren't for Bunbury's extraordinary bad health, for instance, I wouldn't be able to dine with you tonight at Willis's, for I have really been engaged to Aunt Augusta for more than a week.
I haven't asked you to dine with me anywhere tonight.
Oh, yes, I know. You are absurdly careless about sending out invitations. There's nothing that annoys people so much as not receiving an invitation.
You'd much rather dine with your Aunt Augusta.
I have no intention of doing anything of the kind. In the first place, when I dine, I am always treated as a member of the family. I never sit down with no woman at all, or two. And, in the second place, I know perfectly well who she will set me next to tonight. She's going to set me next to Mary Faulkner, who is always flirting with her husband across the dinner table. It's not quite right. Indeed, it's not even decent. And that sort of thing is enormously on the rise in London. The amount of women who flirt with their own husbands is perfectly scandalous. It looks so bad. It is simply washing one's own clean linen in public. Besides, now that I know you to be a Bunburyist, I naturally want to talk to you about Bunbury. I want to tell you the rules.
I'm not a Bunburyist. If Gwendolyn accepts me, I shall kill my brother. Indeed, I think I shall kill him in any case. Cecily's a little too much interested in me. She's always asking me to forgive him and that sort of thing. It's such a bore. So I will kill him.
Why would you do that?
Because Cecily's too much interested in him.
Very interesting. I highly recommend that you don't. I know that I never, ever killed Bunbury.
I'll say that you should part with with your invalid friend with the absurd name.
Nothing will induce me to part with Bunbury. And if you ever get married, which seems to me to be extremely problematic, you will be very glad to know Bunbury. A man who marries without knowing Bunbury has a very tedious time of it.
If I ever marry a sweet, charming girl like Gwendolyn, I would never want to know Bunbury.
Then your wife will. You seem to forget that in married life, 3 is company and 2 is none.
That is what the corrupt French drama has been propounding for the last 50 years.
Oh yes, and that the happy English home has proved in half the time.
Don't try to be cynical, Algie. It's perfectly easy to be cynical.
My dear fellow, it isn't perfectly easy to be anything nowadays. There's such a lot of beastly competition about. That must be Aunt Augusta. Now, if I can get her out of the way for 10 minutes, you might have an opportunity of proposing to Gwendolyn. May I dine with you tonight at Willis's?
I suppose so, if you want to.
Yes, but you must be serious about it. I hate people who aren't serious about meals. It's so shallow of them.
Lady Bracknell and Miss Fairfax. Good afternoon, dear Algernon. I hope you are behaving very well.
I'm feeling very well indeed, Aunt Augusta.
That is not quite the same thing. In fact, the two things rarely go together.
Dear me, Gwendolyn, you are smart.
I'm always smart. Am I not, Mr. Worthing?
You are quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I'm not that. But there's no room for development, and I intend to develop in many directions. I'm sorry we are a little late, Algernon, but I was obliged to call on dear Lady Aubrey. I haven't seen her since her poor husband's death. I have never seen a woman so altered. She looks quite 20 years younger. And now, I will have a cup of tea and one of those nice cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Yes, Aunt Augusta.
Won't you come and sit here, Gwendolyn?
Thanks, Mama. I'm quite comfortable where I am.
Good heavens! Lady, why are there no cucumber sandwiches left?
There were no cucumbers in the market this morning, sir. I went down twice.
No cucumbers?
No, sir, not even for ready money.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I am greatly distressed, Aunt Augusta, there being no cucumbers in the market. Not even for ready money.
It really makes no matter, Algernon. I had some compass with Lady Aubrey, who seems to be living entirely for pleasure now.
Oh yes, I hear her hair has turned quite gold from grief.
It certainly has changed its color, from what cause I, of course, cannot say. I've got quite a treat for you tonight, Algernon. I'm going to send you down with Mary Farquhar. She's such a nice woman, so attentive to her husband. So likely to watch him.
I am afraid, Aunt Augusta, that I will have to give up the pleasure of dining with you tonight after all.
I hope not, Algernon. You put my table completely out. Your uncle would have to dine upstairs. Fortunately, he's accustomed to that.
It is a terrible disappointment. New York State is great bore to me. But I've just had a telegram saying that my friend Bunbury is dreadfully ill. They seem to think that I should be with him.
It is very strange. This Mr. Bunbury seems to suffer from curiously bad health.
Yes, Bunbury is a dreadful invalid.
Well, I must say, Algernon, that I think it is high time that Mr. Bunbury made up his mind whether he's going to live or die. This shilly-shally with the question is absurd. Nor do I approve in any way of the morbid sympathy with invalids. I consider it morbid. Illness of any kind is hardly to be encouraged in others. Health is the primary duty of life. I am always telling that to your poor uncle, but he never seems to take much notice, as far as any improvement in his ailment goes. Well, Algernon, of course, if you were obliged to be beside the bedside of Mr. Bunbury, I have nothing more to say, but I would be much obliged if you would be kind enough to ask him, from me, to not have a relapse on Saturday, for I rely on him to arrange my music for me. It is my last reception, and I want something that will encourage conversation, particularly at the end of the season when one has said whatever they had to say, which in most cases is probably not much.
I will speak to Aunt Augusta, Bunbury, Aunt Augusta, if he is still conscious. And I think I can assure you he'll be quite all right by Saturday. But you see, the music is a great difficulty. For if one plays good music, people won't talk. And of course, if one plays bad music, then people won't listen. But I will run over the program I've drawn out, if you will kindly come to the next room with me.
Thank you, Algernon. That is very thoughtful of you. I'm sure the program will be delightful after a few expurgations. French songs I cannot possibly allow. People seem to think that they are improper and either look shocked, which is vulgar, or laugh, which is worse. French German sounds a thoroughly respectable language, and indeed I think it's so. Gwendolyn will accompany me.
Certainly, Mamma.
Charming day it has been, Miss Fairfax.
Pray don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I always feel quite certain that they mean something else. That makes me so nervous.
I do need something else.
I thought so. In fact, I am never wrong.
And I would like to be allowed to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's temporary absence.
I would certainly advise you to do so. Mamma has a way of coming back suddenly into a room that I've often had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I met you, I have loved you more than any girl I've ever met.
Yes.
I met you.
I'm quite well aware of the fact. And I often wish that, in public at any rate, you had been more demonstrative. For me, you have always had an irresistible fascination. Even before I met you, I was far from indifferent to you. We live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals. The fact is constantly mentioned in the more expensive monthly magazines, and has now reached the provincial pulpits, I'm told. And it has always been my ideal to love someone with the name of Earnest. There is something in the name that inspires absolute confidence. The moment Algernon first told me that he had a friend called Earnest, I knew I was destined to love you.
My sweet Gwendolyn. But you don't mean to say that you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Ernest.
But your name is Earnest.
Yes, but supposing it wasn't.
That is clearly a metaphysical speculation, and like most metaphysical speculations, has very little reference at all to the actual facts of real life as we know them.
To speak quite candidly, darling, I don't much care for the name of Ernest. I don't think it suits me at all.
It suits you perfectly. It's a divine name. It has a music of its own. It produces vibrations.
I also think there are much more charming names up there. Jack, for instance, a wonderful name.
Jack. No, there is very little music in the name Jack, if any at all indeed.
It does not thrill. It produces absolutely no vibrations. I have known several Jacks, and they all, without exception, are more than usually plain. Besides, Jack is a notorious domesticity for John, and I pity any woman who was married to a man called John. She would lead a very tedious life with him. She would probably never be allowed to know the entrancing pleasure of a single moment's solitude. The only really safe name is Earnest.
Gwendolyn, I must be christened at once. I mean, we must get married at once. There's no time to be lost.
married, Mr. Worthing?
Well, you know I love you, and you have led me to believe that you are not absolutely different to me.
I adore you, but you haven't proposed to me yet. Nothing at all has been said about marriage. This subject has not even been touched on.
Well then, may I propose to you now?
I think it would be an admirable opportunity. And to spare you any possible disappointment, Mr. Worthing, I think it only fair to tell you quite frankly beforehand that I am fully determined to accept you.
Gwendolyn,
Yes, darling, what have you got to say to me?
you know what I have got to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it.
Gwendolyn, will you marry me?
Of course I will, darling. How will I forget about it? I'm afraid you have had very little experience in how to propose.
My own one. I have never loved anyone in the world but you.
Yes, but men often propose for practice. I know my brother Gerald does it. All my girlfriends tell me so. Wonderful blue eyes you have, Earnest. They're quite blue. I hope you will always look at me just like that, especially when there are other people present.
Mr. Worthing! Rise, sir, from this semi-recumbent posture. Is most indecorous.
Mama, I must beg you to retire at once. This is no place for you. Besides, Mr. Worthing is not quite finished yet. Finished what, may I ask? Mr. Worthing and I are engaged to be married, Mama.
Pardon me, you are not engaged to anyone. When you do become engaged to someone, I or your father, should his health permitting, will inform you of that. A marriage should come on a young girl as a surprise, pleasant or unpleasant as the case may be. It could hardly be imagined that she could be able to arrange for herself. And now as regards to you, Mr. Worthing, I will ask you a couple questions, and when I am done with these inquiries, you, Gwendolyn, will wait for me below in the carriage.
Mama!
In the carriage, Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn, the carriage.
Yes, Mama.
You can take a seat, Mr. Worthing.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell. I prefer standing.
I feel somewhat bound to tell you that you are not down on my list of eligible young men. Although I have the same list as the Duchess of Bolton has. We work together in that. However, I'm quite ready to enter your name should your answers be what really affectionate mother requires. Do you smoke?
Well, yes, I must admit I do smoke.
I am pleased to hear it. A man should always have an occupation of some kind. There are large many young men in London, as it is. How old are you?
29.
A very good age to be married at. I have always been of opinion that a man who desires to get married should not know either everything or nothing. Which do you know?
I know nothing, Lady Bracknell.
I'm glad to hear it. I do not approve of anything that tampers with natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate, exotic fruit. Touch it, and the bloom is gone. The whole theory of modern education is radically unsound. Fortunately, in England at any rate, it produces no effect whatsoever. If it did, it would prove a serious danger to the upper classes. What is your income?
Between 7,000 and 8,000.
In land and investments.
In investments, chiefly.
That is satisfactory. Well, between the expectations during one's life and the duties exacted from one after one's death, man has ceased to be either a profit or a pleasure.
I have a country house with about 500 acres attached to it, but the only people that seem to get any real income off it are the poachers.
A country house? How many bedrooms? Well, that will clear up afterwards. You have a townhouse, I think. A girl with a simple, unspoiled nature like Gwendolyn could hardly be expected to reside in the country.
I have a house in Belgrave Square, but it is lent by the year to Lady Blossom. I can get it back at any time with a 6 months' notice.
Lady Blossom. I don't know her.
She goes about very little. She's a lady considerably advanced in years.
Nowadays, that is no guarantee of respectability of character. What number in Belgrave Square?
149.
The unfashionable side. I thought there was something. However, that could be easily altered.
Do you mean the fashion or the sign?
both if necessary, I presume. Are your parents living?
No, I'm afraid I have lost both my parents.
Both. To lose one parent may be regarded as misfortune. To lose both seems like carelessness. Who was your father?
I said I had lost both my parents. It would be near the truth to say my parents had lost me. I was found.
Found?
Yes. The late Mr. Thomas Carter found me in a handbag.
A handbag?
Yes. It was a somewhat large, capacious, black leather handbag with handles to it. A somewhat ordinary handbag, in fact.
And in what locality did this Mr. James or Thomas Cardew come across this ordinary handbag?
The cloakroom at Victoria Station. It was given to him mistaken for his own.
The cloakroom at Victoria Station.
Yes, the bright line.
The line is immaterial. Mr. Burke, I confess I seem somewhat bewildered by what you have just told me. To be born, or at any rate bred into a handbag, whether it handles or not, seems to me to display contempt for the ordinary decencies of family life. That reminds one of the worst excesses of the French Revolution. I presume you know what that fortunate movement led to. As for the locality in which the handbag was found, at a railway station, might serve to conceal a social indiscretion. Has been probably used for this purpose before now, it can hardly be regarded as an assured basis for a recognizable position in good society.
Might I ask what you would require me to do? I need hardly say that I would do anything in the world to ensure Gwendolyn's happiness.
I would strongly advise you, Mr. Worthing, to try and acquire some relations as soon as possible, and to make a definite effort to produce one parent of either sex before the season is quite over.
I hardly see how I can do that. I can produce the handbag at any moment. My dressing room at home. I'm sure that would please you, Lady Bracknell.
Me, sir? What has it to do with me? You could hardly imagine that I, Aunt Will Bracknell, would dream of allowing our only daughter, a daughter brought up with the utmost care, to form an alliance with a parcel and marry into a cloakroom. Kindly open the door for me, sir. You will of course understand that for the future, there's to be no communication of any kind between you and Miss Fairchild.
Would you kindly stop playing that ghastly tune? How idiotic you are, Algie.
Didn't it go off all right, old boy? You don't mean to say she refused you. It is the way she has with people. She is always refusing them. I think I'm most ill-natured of her.
Oh, Gwendolyn is as rising trivet. As far as she's concerned, we are engaged. Her mother, however, is perfectly unbearable. Never met such a gorgon. I don't really know what a gorgon's like, but I'm quite sure her mother is one. She's a monster without being a myth. That's quite unfair. I apologize, Algie. I suppose I shouldn't be talking about your relations in this way before you.
My dear fellow, I absolutely love hearing my relations abused. Really, it's the only reason I put up with them at home. Relations are simply a tedious pack of people who haven't got the slightest idea of how to live or the smallest inclination about when to die.
I haven't got any relations. Don't know anything about them.
You're a lucky man. Relations never lend one money, nor give anyone credit. Even for genius. They are a sort of aggravated form of the public.
And what does it matter whether a man had a mother and father or not? Anything in the papers?
Nothing. But I am currently very interested in a girl I have never met. Very interested in making.
Well, that's nonsense.
No, it isn't.
Well, I don't want to argue about things. You always want to argue about things.
Well, that is what things were originally made for.
Is that clever?
Yes. All the time. Indeed. By the way, have you told Gwendolyn the truth about you being Earnest in town and Jack in the country?
One does not tell these sort of things to a sweet, fine girl. What extraordinary ideas you have to behave to a woman.
The only way to behave to a woman is to make love to her if she is pretty, and to someone else if she is plain.
Oh, that's nonsense.
What about the young lady who's guarding you? What about your brother Ernest? What about the profligate who's your brother?
Oh, Cecily's all right. By the end of the week, I shall have Ernest killed.
Killed?
In Paris.
Say a severe chill.
Are you sure severe chill isn't hereditary?
Of course it isn't.
Very well then. It's settled. I shall kill him in Paris.
I would very much like to meet Cecily, but
I'll make quite sure you never do.
why not?
Because you are not to refer to her as Cecily. I don't like it.
Ooh, I know what type of girl she is. I know exactly what type of girl she is. She is one of those dull, boring, intellectual girls one meets all over the place these days. I expect that she is 39 and looks it.
She happens to be excessively pretty and only just 18.
And have you told Gwendolyn that you have an excessively pretty ward who is only just 18?
Oh, one doesn't blurt these things out to people. Life is a question of tact. One leads up to these things gradually. I'm sure they will be great friends. I bet you anything you'd like that half an hour after they've met, they'll both be calling each other sister.
Women only call each other that after they have called each other a lot of other things. By the way, if we want to go get a good table at Willison's, we really must go and get dressed. Did you notice the early 7?
Oh, it's almost 7.
Well, I'm hungry.
And I heard you a time when you weren't. However, all right. I will drop by the Albany and meet you at Wilson's at 8.
What shall we do after we get dinner? Go to a club?
Oh no, I hate talking.
Then let's go to a theater.
Oh no, I loathe listening.
Then what should we do?
Nothing.
Nothing. It's absurdly hard work doing nothing. Then again, I don't mind hard work when there's no definite object of any kind.
Miss Fairfax.
Gwendolyn, upon my word.
My dear Gwendolyn.
Ernest, we may never be married. The expression on Mamma's face, I fear we never shall. Few parents nowadays pay any regard to what their children have to say to them. The old-fashioned respect for the young is fast dying out. But although she may prevent us from becoming that in life, and I may marry someone else, and very often, nothing that she can possibly do can alter my eternal devotion to you.
My dear Gwendolyn.
The story of your romantic origin, as related to me by Mamma, with unpleasing comments, has naturally stirred the deeper fibers of my nature. Your Christian name has an irresistible fascination. The simplicity of your character makes you exquisitely incomprehensible to me. Your town address at the Albany I have. What is your address in the country?
The Manor House. Oh, Bedfordshire.
There is a good postal service, I suppose. It may become necessary to do something desperate. That, of course, will require serious consideration. I will communicate with you daily.
I will see Miss Fairfax out.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow, Lane, I'm going bundering.
Yes, sir.
I shall probably not be back until Monday. You may set out my dress clothes, my smoking jacket, and all the suits.
Yes, sir.
I hope tomorrow will be a fine day, Lane.
It never is, sir.
You're a perfect pessimist.
I do my best to give satisfaction.
There's a sweet, simple, intelligent girl. What are you so amused at?
Oh, I am just a little worried about my poor friend Bunbury. That's all.
If you don't take care, Bunbury will get you into a serious scrape someday.
I love scrapes. They're the only things that are never serious.
Oh, that's nonsense. You never say anything but nonsense.
Nobody ever does.